Tonight's class is what I'm calling 5 in a Flash. It's a one-sheet wonder technique that I was introduced to by fellow demonstrator LeeAnn Greff. Let's see how this is done. Because we are doing a one-sheet wonder technique, we need one sheet of paper or cardstock to stamp on. The other cardstock that we will be using for the base of the card, the layers on the front, none of those get stamped. This is the only one that's getting stamped, other than we will stamp inside as well. But for now, for the front, it's this one sheet that will produce 5 cards. First thing we need to do is break it up into the 5 sections so that we know where we're stamping. We need to create first a vertical line that's running down here, and it will be at 4 3/4 inches. And then we want another 3 1/2 inch mark, which puts this at 8 1/4, because 4 3/4 plus 3 1/2 make 8 1/4. If you don't like doing that math, no problem. This is what you do. 4 3/4. Then I'm going to move it over and do 3 1/2. And now I'm going to connect the lines at the top and bottom. This little sliver here, that's going to get cut off and not used at all. All right. So this piece that is 4 3/4 this way, we want it to be 3 1/2 this way. Yes, that's the same as this measurement. So 4 3/4, now I need to measure 3 1/2 inches all the way down. So you can do 3 1/2, and I need another 3 1/2. 3 1/2 and 3 1/2 is 7. And another 3 1/2 puts me at 10 1/2. Again, don't like the math? It's okay. I was a math teacher. I know there's plenty of you who don't like math. So it's 3 1/2. We're just going to slide our ruler over then. Do 3 1/2. See, this way you don't have to do math. Truth be told, I don't always want to do math either. If I have to think too much, like I will for the measurements for the layers, then I will just move my ruler. And then we want to connect these as we did before on the other side. So this side right here is going to result in 3 layers, all the same measurement, 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. 1, 2, 3, and an unused piece. Here, this is 3 1/2 inches wide, so we need 4 3/4 marks. So 4 3/4 and 4 3/4 makes 9 1/2. If you don't trust me or don't want to think about it, 4 3/4, move your ruler down, and 4 3/4. So tell me, I want to know, put in the comments section, are you I'm going to do the math in my head or on a calculator person, or are you I'm going to move the ruler kind of person? Weigh in the comments. I've got my suspicions what the breakdown will be. I'm guessing that 90% of you, definitely more than 75, are the move the ruler kind of people. I know math teachers like me are a special breed. No comments on that. All right. Oh, I was bringing my paper cutter in, but we're not ready for that. We have to stamp first. All right, so I have my card. Now, I'm really going to stamp down the center because this is center line, remember? And I want to sort of kind of bring it in along these other lines. So I will sort of pay attention when I'm stamping to make sure that I'm getting sufficient images on at least 2 edges of all these cards. All right, I'm bringing in 2 greens, Evening Evergreen and Soft Succulent. I'm bringing in the Leaves of Holly stamp set, which is a 2-step Stampin' Set. I'm going to use the smaller leaves. Now this one puts down more color, but I want it to be the background. So this is going to be the lighter color. And this one is the detail, which means I'm going to use the darker color. So it's sort of in reverse when you're looking at a 2-step stamp set. The darker stamp usually gets the lighter color, and the lighter stamp gets the darker color. All right, I'm going to take my less detailed stamp and ink it up into Soft Succulent. Let's go ahead and bring in some grid paper here just to protect my surface a little bit. It's grid paper on the other side. It's dirty, so I didn't want to use it. And we're going to stamp down. Now, I'm largely going to keep the stems on one side, but they can go in lots of different directions. And that's okay that it didn't stamp perfectly well because I am going to bring that other stamp over the top of it. But it is a wake-up call, and I need to make sure that I'm being a little bit more careful over here. And I'm going to bring in another one that goes maybe this way. And let's see. Like this, if I keep turning it. Soft Succulent is a very soft and pretty color. Okay, let's see. And we need a few more in here. Let's do this right here. And do this. And come up here and do that. Now we don't have too much over here because remember, I'm paying attention to my pencil lines. And we don't have anything, we really only have it really mostly across the top here. So let's go ahead and do something like this. And let's bring some out in this direction. It's okay that they overlap. This is going to look a lot worse before it looks better. I guarantee it. You're going to look at it and think, that is a hot mess. You know what? I should have gone down a little bit further here. I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to bring this in and go ahead and there. Okay. Get my other stamp. It's a 2-step stamp. Oh, and what I should have said was, it's easier with these colors if you do the darker one first. It is especially for me because I'm trying to work at an angle from the camera. Usually I would have my head right over this, but nobody needs to see the top of my graying head. So I'm just going to guess that I can line things up pretty well. It's a little bit off. But again, 2-step stamps are pretty forgiving. You're going to get some pretty nice results whether or not things are lined up perfectly. Promise. But I would stamp with the dark one first. It makes it a lot easier. I'm trying to find my stems here. The stems are the parts that I worry about the most because they kind of stick out the most on their own. Isn't it pretty how these colors layer together? I can see that my ink block, my stamp block is getting kind of dirty. I need to pay attention to that so that I don't get some errant marks where I don't want them. So see, even though I can't really see where I'm stamping, because as I'm working further up, you know, if I can slide this down, it makes it easier for me. That one was off quite a bit, but no worries. I mean, I can see it over here, but there's so much going on, it's not gonna matter. Okay. All right. There, we've got that. Now I'm going to bring in, and the reason why I wanted to start with the darker first was because that soft succulent is pretty light. With the reds, it doesn't matter so much because the red is pretty bold. All right, so now we just need to figure out where we're going to put our berries. Looks like a nice empty space right here for berries. Let's go ahead and put some there, and here, and here, and here. And I'm varying the position a little bit. Some of these spots are almost berry shaped, aren't they? Ooh, this is getting me in the Christmas spirit. Look at that pretty red and green. I think one more right up here. Just kind of looking to see where things are going. I lied, one more down here, just off a little bit. And we'll bring in our last color, which is Cherry Cobbler. It's just the accents for the berries. Give them a little bit more dimension. And this should line up pretty well. It's much more forgiving because there's no stem or anything. I am finding it a little bit hard as I get further away from me. So I'm just going to keep pulling this towards me. You won't look at my gray hair if I don't lean in too much. I don't mind my gray hair. I really don't. But still, nobody needs to see my scalp. You'd rather see these pretty berries. All right, there we go. Now I think the only thing left I'm going to do, one other thing that I could do is do some deckling of sorts. So if I brought in an aqua painter, for example, and I brought in my stamp pad, yeah, I'm gonna squeeze my stamp pad together. Just trying to think of what I'm doing here. And I'm going to put a little bit of water in here. Just get it going a little bit more. I'm going to pick up some with my aqua painter. You can use a regular paintbrush too if you want. Then I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to tap. And see how it just puts on some deckling? Just a little bit of interest on it. All right. Okay, I've cleaned up my area. So now it's time to cut this apart. The first thing I'm going to do is cut it down, those pencil lines. So remember this was, this is 4 3/4. So if I put it at 4 3/4, I should see the pencil line in the ditch of the paper trimmer. Now I can't see it most of the way because the ink covers it up, but I can see it here. If when you've cut it, you see any pencil line, you can just erase it. Don't erase over the ink, just in case the ink's not totally dry. Sometimes you can smudge it. And then this one was 3.5. And again, I'm just going to go by the pencil line instead. I want to make sure it's in my ditch. And there we go. Now the places where I tend to see the pencil line still are where I made the marks initially to measure. I'm going to turn this, and this is going to be at 4 3/4. And 4 3/4 again. I'm really just cutting along those pencil lines. This is a scrap. And here, oop, I've got inky fingers. We're going to have to do something there. Can either stamp a sentiment over it. That might work, depending on what the sentiment is, of course. All right. So here we have our pieces. And now we just need to put some sentiments on them. And I can determine how I arrange it on the card for my sentiment. But you can see they have nice white space. Now I could probably take my sand eraser and get rid of that, but yep, you guessed it. I'm not exactly sure where my sand eraser is these days. I've had lots of stuff going on, and so I've kind of made a mess of my environment over here. So let's go ahead and just grab a sentiment. How about Christmas wishes, or from our home to yours? To friends near and far. You've got a peace and joy. We can do that, or we can just take a sentiment from some other stamp set as well. Let's go with Christmas wishes. I'll figure out the inside sentiment at some other point. That's not big enough. Let's go ahead and bring in a block that's the appropriate size. And we need to decide which color we're going to stamp this in. I think I'm going to go for Evening Evergreen, one of my all-time favorite colors. And we'll do Christmas wishes. I'm going to do Christmas wishes on all of them. Let's see if we can stamp over the red. Yep, can't really notice it. Christmas wishes. We could even go in a different orientation. It's up to you. And now we just need some layers and some bases. I'm going to bring in a single piece of cherry cobbler. And the beauty of this is that I can make a one sheet wonder layer out of this as well. It's going to be just slightly bigger in dimension. So you know how our first one was 4 3/4? Well, this cut is actually going to be 4 7/8. So it's just an eighth bigger than the other measurement. And before it was 3.5, so an eighth bigger is 3 5/8. 3 5/8 once. 3 5/8 twice. 3 5/8 a third time. And you're just left with this little sliver, which you can toss or use as a fake ribbon. Now this already measures 3 5/8 wide, because 3 5/8 and 4 7/8 is 8.5. So nicely works out. So that's already the right measurement. We just now need 4 7/8 inch pieces. Here's a 4 7/8. And here's a 4 7/8. All right. I've already pre-cut 5 card bases. Well, actually I cut 6 because you get 2 out of 1 sheet. I'm just scoring and folding them. Here's the other one I'm not using. All right. I'm going to bring in my layers and my card, and I'm just going to put everything together. Now, if you wanted to, you could be adding some ribbon to decorate these and take them up a notch even more, or you could add some gems. But we're just gonna keep it very simple. Now you do want to be careful when you speckle your cardstock. You do want to give it a second so that your hands don't kind of rub off. That's why I stamp and then I go ahead and I cut my layers for the card bases and the layers that go on them in between that step. Just gives the ink a little bit more time to set up. It doesn't take long generally, but if you've got a very juicy pad or you've got some of those little splatters that might have been thicker than the others, it helps. So there's one card. And here we go. We have 5 cards done pretty quickly. We, of course, do have to stamp on the inside, but that is as simple as stamping a couple leaves. All we would do is cut this insides the same measures that we'd cut this cherry cobbler. And so then out of 1 sheet of basic white, again, you have enough for a layer for each one of these cards.